Hey guys, welcome back to the AutoHound, and sure enough, today we've got the 2023 Discovery Sport SE Edition. It comes in two different editions. It comes in the SE Edition and the R Edition. Both of them have 249 horsepower in a 2-liter 4-cylinder turbocharged engine mated to an 8-speed transmission. This particular car has 21-inch tires. Very, very nice looking. I absolutely love the color. It has a ton of great little features in the back here, including storage. Hit underneath the O, sure enough it pops up, and you've got enough room for a ton of stuff coming from the mall where you might be going to, or if you want to go golfing, you could throw 3 or 4 sets of golf clubs in the back with no problem. The back seat of the car is pretty spacious. If you take a look, you could fit easily 3 kids in there, 3 adults. Fairly comfortable. I'll get in the car and check it out myself. So very nice. Tons of legroom. You know, well laid out, well appointed. The interior is quite nice. The passenger side compartment, again, 14-way adjustable seats. The white leather on the dashboard, complemented with a black top, I think is a nice touch. I really like the door, especially right here. And you know, I think it's just overall nicely designed. It's a very nice, pretty looking car. Oh, let's not go with pretty. Let's go with utilitarian looking car. And utilitarian is good and bad in a way, because this looks a little bit like an undercover state trooper car. So that might scare you when you're looking in your rear view mirror and you see this coming up behind you at 85 miles an hour. Underneath the hood, as I mentioned, we have a 249 horsepower 4-cylinder engine with a turbocharger on it. It's quiet, no issues there. I think it's a little underpowered. I've been driving this car now for 3 days. It's nice. Requires 93 octane, and I learned that the hard way, because this car only gets about 300 miles to a tank full. Getting into the car, it's got the 3 memory seats right down here, and of course the adjustable seats. So getting in, nice car. Here's a problem I have with this car automatically. Why are the window switches up here? Is there any reason for them to be up here, right here, and not down here where they should be? Or even in the middle? Why are they here? This makes no sense. It's very uncomfortable. Yes, they have the auto up feature, but this is stupid. It shouldn't be there. Call me old-fashioned, right? So now getting into the car, we're going to go for a quick little test drive. And after driving this car, like I said, for 3 days, I've come to some conclusions, and you know, they're not all positive, unfortunately. Driving a car like this, you have to understand, this is a Land Rover. A Land Rover evokes a certain emotion in people. These cars are designed specifically for being an off-road car. Unfortunately, this car will never see the off-roads. The worst it's going to see is a mall, a golf course, a parking lot, something with a lot of bumps. And there's my first problem with it. This car on bumps is so uncomfortable. I've checked all the tire pressures, and it's exactly where it needs to be. But it is bumpy, and the body roll is just something fierce. I'm very surprised that Land Rover created a car with so much body roll. In addition to that, the other things that this car doesn't do well is down here in the infotainment system. The infotainment system is multiple buttons to get to the same spot. Why can't they just have one tactile button that gets you into cruise control? No, you have to hit 2. If you want to go and set your wipers to winter mode, you have to go deep into the settings of the car in the infotainment system over here, hit 4 different buttons just to set the windshield wipers up so that you don't get ice underneath them. Because if you get ice underneath them, the problem with Land Rover and Jaguar, as I know, is that the wipers arms are made out of aluminum. In the wiper motor, the actual spindle that turns the wiper left and right is made out of steel. Well, the steel doesn't break. The aluminum does. the aluminum actually, the parts of the gear on the aluminum just fracture and they fall apart, so it breaks the wipers. So you have to be very cautious of that when you buy a Jaguar or a Land Rover or a Range Rover. All of these cars have the exact same problem. You would think that a car that is designed for bad weather would be a little bit more robust in how it's designed. So we have the really non-tactile functions over here, non-tactile functions over here, and very few tactile functions over here. You have your little up and down for your volume, you have your phone over here, you have your cruise control over here, and like I said, you have to hit 2 buttons. You have to hit your set button, and by hitting here, and then it turns on the cruise control. And then if you want to shut it off, just hit that button and it shuts it off. So you have to hit 2 buttons. It makes no sense. Most cars, you hit 1 button, you're good to go. Where this car performs, however, is on its acceleration. 249 horsepower out of a 4-cylinder, 2-liter turbocharged engine. That's fast. It's got 269 foot-pounds of torque, so it's going to pull you through a lot of problem areas. What I like about the car, it's actually quite comfortable inside until you start moving. Then you get all sorts of issues with body roll because it handles very truck-like as opposed to very car-like or SUV-like, like the car in front of us, like my previous RAV4, like my current Jaguar E-Pace. It handles very truck-like. I just hit that button and you can see the car just shook. I have stability control on the GoPro, and it's doing some good, but not a lot of good, and that surprises me, especially being such an expensive car. This starting price is $49,000, and if you go up to the R, you're close to $70,000. So between 50 and 70 grand, you would think that the car would be super comfortable to drive and not soak up every single bump and feel like you're soaking up every single bump. That makes no sense. Like, why would you do that? The other thing is when you're driving the car, like, so the body roll really pushes you side to side, and I don't think that that's very luxurious. Again, Land Rover, evocative of a luxury brand. Jaguar, same thing, but Land Rover, because that's what we're in right now, it's a luxury brand. Why wouldn't you have a luxury brand ride? Why wouldn't you feel comfortable in a car that's supposed to do, excuse me, I have to get off at this exit. You know, why wouldn't you feel comfortable driving this car on a daily basis? And like I said, 3 days in this car, and I'm dying to get out of it. I'm not a fan. So some other things that I've noticed about the car, when you put the car in cruise control, and it has the adaptive cruise control feature built in, which is one of my favorite features of any car. Adaptive cruise control, I think, should be on every car as a standard feature. But when you put it on, what winds up happening is it pulses the accelerator on and the accelerator off, and the accelerator on and the accelerator off. And it consistently does that back and forth. And it doesn't make it very comfortable to ride. You almost get a little seasick and motion sickness because the car doesn't actually feel comfortable. It can't make up its mind because it has an 8-speed transmission, and that transmission doesn't know whether it should stay in the gear or not. It doesn't know whether it should accelerate or not. It's not very well built, or maybe it was well built in 2016 when they first came out, but now here it is, 7 years later, 2023, and they haven't changed it. They've just stuck with the same thing. They haven't improved upon the design, which was great at first, but let's accelerate this, Land Rover. With what we are paying for these cars, it only makes sense. So continuing to drive the car, it does what you want it to do. Now, acceleration wise, I'm not going to argue with that. It has fantastic acceleration, like really very, very quick. So we'll slow down just a tad here, and then I'll just give it a little goose, and you'll see what I'm talking about. I'll give it the beans here, as they call it. Here we go. Go. And a little bit of turbo lag. The gears don't hang too much. can say it's not as comfortable as it should be. We're going to take a corner here in a second, and you'll actually see the body roll. I'm going to try to keep my head as still as possible and show you how much body roll the car actually has at a reasonable exit speed. This says 30 miles an hour, and you know, I don't know many people that actually do exits at 30 miles an hour, except for this minivan in front of me. Yay! So coming off the exit, again, keeping my head perfectly still, look how much body roll this car has. It's moved a good 3 inches off of its own center. Such a high center of gravity for such a small vehicle. And that doesn't make, and again, that's at 30 miles an hour because this guy in front of me is going a little bit too slow. But he's a minivan and he's allowed to. And so, yeah, if you're going to look for a minivan, go for that. But it shouldn't handle like this. This car should handle significantly better going around corners. You get these big, huge 21-inch tires on it. You've got a really comfortable seat. It looks nice, but it doesn't perform the way it should. My overall thoughts on this car would be I would not purchase one. Using it as a loaner car is great. It accelerates pretty good. A little bit of turbo lag, a little more than I would prefer, to be honest with you, but you know, turbo lag is turbo lag is turbo lag. That's not going to change much. And I think it's important to decide on what you truly want in a car. Do you want a car that's a mall crawler like this is going to be, or a golf course crawler? Then yeah, this is the perfect car for you. In between $50,000 and $70,000, is it really? I mean, for 50 to 70 grand, you could get a lot better car, in my opinion. You know, I've driven a ton in, you know, during the new RAV4, which is unbelievably quick. And I don't know, I can't say yes or no to this car. So just driving it on the highway, you're not going to feel too much issue with it. It's going to ride comfortably or pseudo comfortably. You feel everything. Like, my hands are on the wheel and they're not shaking, but I can feel the vibration of the road, and that's not comfortable. That doesn't make you feel confident in driving the car. My wife drove the car for a day, and she said to me, she goes, honey, I'm not driving this car anymore. And she took my Maverick. So she prefers a $30,000 Ford Maverick over a $50,000 Land Rover Discovery. How does that make any sense at all? If you prefer a car that is specifically built to be utilitarian over a car that's supposed to be a luxury brand, then there's a problem with the luxury brand itself. So this has been the Auto Hound. If you like this type of content, please make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And also remember, it's about the drive.